Trace, welcome back once again.
Good morning, Peter. How are you this week?
He is fantastic. More importantly, how is thou?
I am really good, really good.
That's good. All right, Trace, as we normally kick off every morning on a Wednesday, what are some of the things that we're going to be chatting about today?
We have a new shop opening, a shopping village opening in Greater Springfield.
I heard that, yes.
So I thought that we could chat about that and then really talking a little bit about some other interesting property things. So rent investing. What is this?
Yeah.
Why should people consider buying investment properties? What's the benefits, pros, cons, all of that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then finally, really, there's some new data, September data in relation to property values and where we're seeing things. And I wanted to discuss that.
Trace, we've got a new shopping centre opening up, I understand.
I know. It's really good to see because this is a growing community. There are lots and lots of people moving to the suburb basically every day. And, you know, every time you turn around, there's another block of land cleared and more housing going in. So that obviously brings about lots of pressure on the current shopping centres. But it's great to see that the Spring Mountain Village Shopping Centre will be opening at the end of the month.
And Trace, if memory serves me correctly, it's located on the Boulevard and Grand Avenue, I understand.
I think that's correct, but I think I need to go down there and check this place out because there's a coffee shop.
Hang on, I think we should both go down and check it out if there's a coffee shop.
There's a coffee shop, and you know I love coffee. There's a couple of other things, including a Foodworks, I believe.
Wow.
So at the end of the month, I think that will be really good. But from my perspective, it does raise questions about what other shops are needed in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And I constantly see on the Facebook groups people talking about what is needed in the area. I know that everybody wants a Kmart. I believe maybe it might be in the pipeline. I don't know. But I know that everyone wants a Kmart at Orion or locally because it seems to be a very popular shop.
I guess having a shopping centre like a village shopping centre, if you look around Greater Springfield, Augustine Heights, out past Deebing Heights and the like, they've all got those at Camira, for example, where you know, Rami is
you've
and the
got
like.
Your little corner shops everywhere, which help service all the little communities in the greater area. Yeah. So you can pop in and grab your meal.
And then, of course, not too far away. And look, I know we've still got the road situation, but that will eventually, you know, all open up. And of course, the big shopping centre is not all that far away anyway.
I know. And talking about these road networks, these roadworks are still obviously exceptionally problematic. But I have to say, I was driving along the highway at Centenary here in Greater Springfield and witnessed a car pull from my side of the road right onto the other side into incoming traffic. And so this is at the bridge where I know there's been several accidents, head-on collisions here in Greater Springfield. And the driver got out of the way literally at the last second after, because he was approaching 5 oncoming cars. Now, this is the sadness and the necessity, I suppose. So the accident didn't happen, but it was so close. Right. And there's been so many accidents. I really feel that these roadworks this is a really serious situation, so desperately needed for the area.
We mentioned at the start of today's program about talking about, I think they term it, is it rent vesting or rent investing?
Yeah, rent vesting,
Rent vesting, yes.
Have I got that right?
Yeah, rent vesting.
Well, I know you wanted to chat about this. It's a strange term, isn't it? But what is it and what do I actually recommend it? And well, so essentially rent vesting is where you might reside in a certain area, a place, because that's where you work. Mm-hmm. But it's not necessarily the best place to own a property because the values might not be increasing or you might not want to live there forever.
Right.
So the person actually goes and buys a property in a destination or location that has great capital growth or is a place that they want to live eventually. So let's say you wanted to live at the Sunshine Coast, for example, and you live somewhere else for work. What you might do is buy your property on the Sunshine Coast, but then have a rental, in the suburb where your workplace is or close by. And that allows you to be in the market.
Yep.
experiencing the capital growth of that area, of the area that you're purchasing a property in, and the rent that you're receiving from your investment property is helping fund and pay your mortgage.
Right.
And then you're not outlaying as much money.
So if you had a property, let's say, use your scenario on the Sunshine Coast, and it's quite an expensive property, you may only be having to add a small amount of money into to the rent if the rent isn't totally covering that.
Absolutely. You may be out of pocket, say, $200 a week, as opposed to having to fund the whole amount of the mortgage. But the critical thing is that where you're residing in your property, in your rental property, may not be the best area to purchase in. And that's why people are sort of running with this rent vesting option, where they're renting where they are for their work, but they're buying in a destination that has great capital growth and is potentially where they actually want to live in the future.
And it must work, because the banks would not be giving out the loans if they thought that it wasn't viable.
Absolutely. And it's quite popular. It's quite popular these days that you see first home buyers actually buy an investment property and not buy their first home as the home that they reside in. I do see it quite a lot.
Well, we were talking about rent vesting, and then, of course, you're talking about buying into certain markets and the like. So what about buying investment properties in this current time?
So buying investment properties at the moment has declined. I do see, though, probably about 20% of buyers at the moment are investors. So if we go back a couple of years ago when we were chatting, it was about 50%.
Right.
When the market was booming, there was about 50% of buyers were investors and 50% were wanting to occupy the property. Today, it's about 20% investors, 80% owner-occupiers. That's coming off the back of a supply shortage and also building issues. So your homeowners or owner-occupiers aren't wanting to build, they're wanting to buy established. So buying an investment property is still a very popular choice though. And in the Greater Springfield area, I see a lot of people actually buy a house and then they say to me, we're buying this house, but in the future, we're going to build a house or buy a better house, and we're going to rent this one out.
Right.
So I do see a lot of investors being the types of people that buy their first home. They don't then sell that later on down the track. They hold on to it, convert it into an investment, and move on and buy their more of their dream home.
Going back a little time, would it still be right in saying that most property investors are the mums and dads, not the high flyers or the
yes,
multimillionaires?
Absolutely.
Right.
Most property investors have one investment property. Very few have it, say, in their superannuation self-managed super fund. So some people do that. There is a couple of corporations out there that will own investment properties, and you might have people owning up to 5, but the majority, an overwhelming 70-80% are mum and dad investors that normally have an investment property within, say, a 10-kilometre radius of their actual house, or their investment property is their first home. And there's a lot of benefits to having an investment property, and that's why people go down this path. And if I can discuss those quite briefly, the critical thing is that you lock in the price point of the property that you're buying. A lot of the time, and what's the relevance and what does this actually mean, right? You can imagine if you've got the ability to buy, if we had the ability to go back and buy a property even 4 years ago and pay the prices of 4 years ago, would we do it?
Right.
We would,
Yep.
because the property prices have risen so much. And no, property prices don't rise every year forever. That's not the property cycle. However, if across a 10 and 20 year period, properties have always risen in our area. So I would say to you, it gives you the opportunity, if you can buy an investment property, that you're locking it in at today's price. And that has power and over a long period of time because the property value rises. So don't buy an investment property thinking you're going to make $50,000 or $100,000 over the next 12 months, because you might not. But over the next 10 years, absolutely. And then, of course, you have your tenants residing in it, helping you pay off the mortgage. There's normally a gap that you've got to meet. So as long as you can afford that as well, over the long haul, you will make good money. So you've got capital growth across time. You can also do value improvements to properties. I see a lot of people, investors, buy properties that are a little bit older and do some works to them. Works might be renovate the kitchen, refresh the home throughout, those types of things, add patios. And then, of course, don't forget, you've also got tax incentives. So every year, assuming, based on your tax position, but there's tax incentives to owning investment properties. And so the government tax return gives you various discounts. And accumulated over time, this also has a positive impact, which is why, going back to the rent investing that we were talking about before, this is why this is a very good thing to do, especially if the area that you're buying your investment property in has good growth, because you get the benefits of that over a long period of time.
Can we have a look before we finish this week about the housing market and what do you think is happening in the current situation?
Yeah, the housing market data has just been released in September, and it's really positive. And I'll say to you, going back 12 months ago when we were sitting here having these chats, the market was terrible at that time. And I remember thinking every week, oh my goodness, this is so depressing. Everything we're talking about, it's rate rise after rate rise, and it's the market's languishing. Things aren't performing as well. Our conversations were all about that. But in good news, the market it's finally rising again. And we are experiencing positive growth signs in the Greater Brisbane area, which is wonderful to see, because it's not so fun when property prices are falling.
No.
And I don't love a boom market as a real estate agent. I think that it's a very stressful market for buyers and sellers. But a nice, stable, rising market is nice, because no one wants to go off and spend $800,000 on a property and it drop in value by 5% across the next 12 months, because that's not very nice for anybody that's paying off a mortgage.
Yeah.
So having a nice gradual increase is nice. It keeps inflation well checked, and it provides security in what is people's greatest investment. There are a number of things that are supporting the growth at the moment. One, and the most prominent, being that interest rates have stopped rising, and that provides confidence in the market. So confidence is a key factor of property values. When you don't have confidence in the market, buyers start to speak in a different language and property values fall. When you have strong confidence in the economy and in values, then the language of buyers changes. Also, supply and demand is a massive thing, which we've spoken about multiple times. One of the other key drivers at the moment really is the Olympics that is coming in 2032.
Right.
And there is lots of subtle murmurs around the preparation, the housing requirements, and I am seeing people buying in this area in preparation for the Olympics. Now, I know we're not in the inner city ring, but we are experiencing positive growth off the back of the the Greater Brisbane area rising. Now, we also have a lot of other things, which include migrants moving to Australia.
Yep.
And where better else to live than Queensland? So I do feel a lot of we do see it.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
We see it all the time.
Yep.
A lot of migrants are still moving here. So they might have gotten residency in Australia, and then they're coming up into Greater Springfield. I see them on the daily, that they're coming in from, say, Melbourne and different places. So that's having a positive impact. And all forecasts are expecting are all showing that the market is going to continue to rise over the next couple of years. I personally hope it doesn't rise too drastically.
Yes.
But it's nice to see.
Yeah. If we go back to what we first talked about this morning, and that's the Spring Mountain Village shop.
Yes.
Once again, it's that word confidence, isn't it?
It is. And businesses need it to be able to open shops and have their businesses in the area. people need confidence in the market so that they will continue to invest. Even with investment properties and the like, you have to have confidence to actually want to buy in an area.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good, confident way of wrapping up this week's program.
It's a really positive market at the moment, so which I'm quite excited about.
Well, if you're excited, I'm excited too, Trace. Look forward to having you back next week.
Thank you so much.